Hey guys, welcome to this video devoted to explaining what is going on this stats sheet. Honestly, Nioh does not do the best job with explaining stuff and just dumps a ton of information at you. And what doesn't help is that sometimes, on top of the poor explanations, it also has typos, it has just poor translations and things that just don't work out depending on what region things are localized for you. Let's get right into core stats, and then I'll break down some of the more battle stats. When I start talking about core stats, I'm going to talk about what each of them does and their primary use, and if I think there's an important secondary use, I will include that as well. Let's start with body. Body is pretty much just about life. It says it has other things, but really, if you just want more life, get more body. Problem solved. Next up is heart. Heart just governs your flat key amount. It has nothing to do with key recovery speed. There is no specific stat in the game, at least for Nioh, that governs key recovery speed. There is in Nioh 2, but that's outside the scope of this video. So heart is just a flat key amount. Stamina is pretty straightforward in that it allows you to equip heavier armors provided you have enough stamina. Just make sure that your stamina always allows you to have below a 70% equipment weight. You want to be at B agility at the very least. So level up stamina as you need to. Next up is strength. Strength's pretty much only real purpose is just to boost the damage of heavier weapons. That's it. Skill, on the other hand, is very similar in which it boosts some of the technical weapons, as you see here, dual swords, tonfa, and whatever and whatnot. But it does have a secondary benefit that is overlooked, and that is simply that it empowers your ki pulses. Your ki pulses will regenerate more ki, so get skill if you want to have more powerful ki pulses, and damage for certain weapons. Dexterity is kind of simple to understand. Its predominant function is just allowing you to have more ninja tools and have more powerful ninja tools. That's really it. Magic is kind of the same. You get more magic tools to use, and your magic stuff is a bit more effective, or a bit more powerful. Last but not least is spirit. This is pretty much required for you to activate certain special effects for your guardian spirits. The real number that you're looking at to be able to use every guardian spirit and have every special effect unlocked is 34 spirit, as shown here and mentioned in my previous video. That's really it about core stats. If I had to make recommendations as to what to get, again, this is more suited to the way that I play. It's prioritized almost as you can see here. I kind of just got 30 across the board. I didn't really get much of body because I die in like a hit anyway. But I like a lot of heart because, one, I don't have one, and second, I get to have a ton of ki, which is always nice to have. Second, in between, say, getting skill or strength for damage, I got skill because, one, I need skill because I suck at this game, but more importantly, I get to have better ki pulses. So you kind of hopefully notice a theme that I'm prioritizing unlocking certain things with how numbers are distributed, but really I just want to be able to attack the most. So heart and skill kind of suits that into play, but of course, make your own decisions about what you feel you need to play the way that you'd like to. So that's about core stats. There's a bunch of battle stats that you notice here kind of in the middle of the screen. I'm going to go to my actual pieces of equipment to discuss this a little further. So let's get right there. Battle stats! Yeah, let's talk about battle stats. So exciting! Alright, what are battle stats? Well, you saw them on the sheet. But what are the ones that I want to discuss today? And that's simply the stuff from here for this weapon and below, and then I'll do something for the armor. Starting with attack multiplier on weapons. Attack multiplier is simply just the flat damage you're going to do. It's not an exact, like you'll do 815 damage, but it's just the more you have of this, the more powerful your weapon. It's the single most important part for doing damage. What about change to attack? What on earth does this mean? It's poorly translated, but more or less this is telling you how certain stats scale in regards to your weapon's power. So in this case for the spear, body, which has a grade of B+, is the predominant scaling factor. So if you wanted to boost your weapon's power a bunch and just try to min-max, then get as much body as you possibly can, followed by some combination of strength and skill, and you would be just fine in regards to boosting damage. And that's all change to attack really means. Next up is break. Break is a value you want as high as possible, but what does it actually mean? It says it affects how severely an enemy's guard is broken, but again, that's not very clear what we're breaking. Let me put it this way. If you throw out a bunch of attacks against an opponent who is blocking, then having a high break will enable you to shred their ki. I'm sure you've come across a couple of opponents who just love to block and just constantly block. This is where having high break weapons can abuse that. This is why weapons like Odachi and Axe are so good against blocking opponents. That's what break is about. On the other side, there's parry. It's a mistranslation, and Team Ninja has broken my heart in regards to this. This is, again, why I needed the high heart rating. All stupidity aside, they should just rename this block, because that's basically what it does. The higher, I guess, quote-unquote, parry rating you have, the less ki damage you're going to take when you block an attack. Simple enough. Let's get to armor pieces. So here we go. Start off with defense multiplier. It's pretty analogous to attack multiplier. It's just a flat amount of damage you will reduce. So the higher, the better. What about toughness? What does toughness really mean? It is actually, believe it or not, accurate. Resistance to guard breaks and ki damage. The higher your toughness, the less ki damage you will take. It's really awesome to have. If you manage to get to 200 and above, not only will you greatly reduce ki damage taken, but you will in fact gain poise, or in other words, hyper armor. If you don't know what hyper armor is, it basically means you can continue your attacks and not worry about getting interrupted. Let's say there's a specific combo that takes a long time or is pretty slow, and if you didn't have, say, the required toughness, normally what will happen is just you'll get interrupted, and that really sucks. It feels pretty bad. But by being above 200 toughness, you can pretty much shrug off any incoming attack in terms of getting interrupted. It is super awesome and definitely worth going for. If you happen to be below that and above 100, you're still fine. It's still pretty good toughness, as you can see. It's what I'm playing with here. But even if you're below 100, it's not a big deal. It's not a deal breaker. It's not going to ruin your game. You'll just notice you take a lot of ki damage. But that's to be expected if you're wearing pretty much nothing or light armors anyway. Now what about all these numbers? Versus fire, versus wind, blah blah blah. What do they mean? To explain this a little bit better, I'm going to look at the overall stat sheet that we have once again. These are more or less percentages. And yes, you'll resist that element's attack, but even more importantly than that, you will resist the debuff that is associated with that element. I'm going to bring you to an example with Versus Paralysis. I'm sure you guys may recall the second boss of the game, Hino Enma, the vampire lady who shoots out like paralysis waves or whatever. It always sucks when she hits you and you get paralyzed at one go. One thing that was discovered by other players, I can't recall right now off the top of my head, I'll list it in the description, but they discovered that if you have a versus paralysis of 50, so it's like 50%, then any of her hits that would paralyze you won't. It'll take her like at least 2 or 3 for her to actually paralyze you, and that opens up all sorts of options, which I should link at some point. So yeah, the higher these numbers, the better. And you'll resist getting that status debuff. It's pretty awesome. There happens to be versus Yokai Realm 914% or whatever. I don't know the exact calculations, but you're going to have so much it's not going to become a big deal. You're not going to have to worry about losing ki in the Yokai Realm. It's just going to be a reduced regain of your ki. And that's pretty much it when it comes to battle stats. There is a ton more information that the game will kind of throw at you, and it is unfortunate, but at the very least, this should help you understand what you're working with. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in a video next time. Take care, and peace, everyone!